We have covered so dang many of the systems that you should establish on your off-grid homestead that it's kind of hard to keep up with. Shoot, you may be so far behind you thought you was in first, but don't worry. I made a playlist for you so that you could binge all the videos and get yourself all caught up. So what system should be the next system that you sort out in this order of operations? Nope, it's still not animals or garden. It's Mopower, baby. Now, there seems to be a ton of confusion and disagreement on this subject, so let's talk about it. First off, we got to get something straight. I am not necessarily the homesteader who pines for the way things used to be. I love my technology. I use it every single day. I enjoy lights, freezers, refrigerators, power tools, internet access, my devices, and I love curling up with Carrie and watching a movie on my TV. And that might be different for some of y'all who are pursuing this lifestyle. And that's okay. There's a lot of wiggle room in the definition of what this lifestyle is supposed to mean. So do what you want. Have you ever been on a hike and you're going along and you jump off the path and you go off through the woods in search of something pretty? Well, sometimes when you do that, you wind up getting turned around and end up lost. The wrong thing to do in that situation is to continue off into the woods. The right thing to do is to backtrack a little bit, get yourself back on the path, and tally-ho forward. And that's kind of how I look at homesteading. I'm more of the homesteader that thinks civilization hopped off the path in search of something pretty. And in doing so, gave up doing the things that made us capable individually and powerful as a community, which allowed us to become dependent upon systems that, whether they were intended to or not, are used to control us toward a life that we don't really want. I recently read that there's an estimate that if one of those systems, the grid, were to go down, as much as 90% of the population wouldn't survive. And I just think that's not a good position to be in. But even with living this somewhat crazy but amazing lifestyle, I look at modern life and I have to say, it hasn't been all bad. In fact, we can even take some of the pretty things we found when we jumped off the path and bring them back with us. And that'd be okay. There are quite a few ways for you to generate electricity to power all the devices, knickknacks, tchotchkes, and comforts that you could possibly want to run while living off-grid. If you have a little stream on your land, hydroelectric can make you some power. Got wind? A couple small wind turbines can make quite a bit of power too. I even saw one guy who took an alternator off of a car and hooked it up to an exercise bike, and every time his wife wanted to do laundry, he'd get out there and start pedaling away. Now, these could all work, or they could all fail spectacularly. Those are not my favorite forms of generating electricity. All of those systems require more maintenance than you might think. They're loud and kind of interrupt the peace, in my opinion. And in the case of wind, well, the wind is unreliable and sort of unpredictable in most places. As far as the exercise bikes, don't know if I got time for that. Or the knees. I don't think my knees could handle that. But I'd do it for you, love. I would, if that's what you wanted. I would Peloton our way to power.
My hero.
You're welcome. And that's why I prefer solar power. Now, every time I bring up solar power in a video, I'll always get comments from people who say, solar power is a scam! It's way too expensive! And as a former solar professional, off-grid homesteader, and all-around electricity enthusiast, I gotta say, you're not entirely wrong. Most people's experience with solar is getting a quote from a solar company that's so high that they imagine that the panels must be dipped in gold, or that the installation requires so much knowledge and skill, experience, and wisdom that must be what they're paying for. Nope. Just companies trying to make as much money as they possibly can off of people's fear of electricity and inability to do stuff. Between 2/3 and 3/4 of the price of a solar installation is labor, installation company profit, and sales commissions. The cost of materials for a solar array, all in, is about $1 a watt. But the national average price is about $3.50 a watt. The big industry secret is that doing solar DIY is actually really easy and makes it cost effective. And let's say you don't want to mess with the actual electrical connections. You can hire an electrician to come in and do that in a couple of hours. It's going to cost you a couple $100. And don't even get me started on the utility companies and how they use net metering to tally up all of the kilowatt hours that you make from your system and give you the least amount of money possible for them while turning around and charging you top dollar for the electricity that you actually use. And don't forget that on average, utility companies increase the price of the kilowatt hour by 5 to 10% every year, at least historically. But I'm sure they're going to have a change of heart and they're going to want to lower the prices in the future. That's probably what's going to happen. Our system here runs everything we have, everything that we had when we had a utility company doing that. The batteries get us through the night, and we have a backup generator just in case the power ever goes out. All in with the cost of the panels, the cost of the batteries, the electronics, the wire, the lumber to build the racking, everything costs $4,500. And with what we were paying for power when we lived back in the city, this system basically paid for itself in about 18 months. And after that 18 months, we're going to basically have free electricity for the next 20 to 30 years, aside from replacing some batteries here and there. It makes it a lot less of a scam. So yeah, solar connected to the grid, going through a solar installation company and then having net metering agreements with your utility company, you're not wrong. It is kind of a scam, especially if you live someplace where electricity is cheap. But when you live off grid, the other options are just things to fiddle with, not really reliable sources of energy. So I would recommend at this point in your off-grid living and homesteading journey that you install some solar. It's cheap and easy, and you can do it. That way you can generate some power defined as the electricity necessary to run your comforts, and by doing that, regain some of your power defined as independence and personal autonomy, and maybe try living for something other than just keeping the lights on. And if you need any help with this, let me know. Catch you next time. It comes from the belly, partner. That's right. I just read the line. I know what it is. Tell your dog I said. Did I turn the wrong way for the shot? Okay. I can only go right. I'm not an ambi-turner.